This is TWiT.
The world is changing rapidly. So rapidly, in fact, that it's hard to keep up. That's why Micah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, talk with the people making and breaking the tech news on Tech News Weekly every Thursday. They know these stories better than anyone, so why not get them to talk about it in their own words? Subscribe to Tech News Weekly, and you won't miss a beat every Thursday at twit.tv.
Now, proprietary I/O and power ports have been the name of the game for a long time for device manufacturers. However, you may have been seen the broad impact that the market has had. That Apple's had on the market, and most of the eyes are on them. Apple has had their proprietary Lightning connector port for, let's say, over 10 years now, and they've made a lot of profit from it, from those custom specs that are out there and cables that they're selling. Although organizations and people grumble about it, they buy it anyways. They don't push back. Well, until now, the European Union strikes again, and this time they're requiring that specific devices have a more standardized port like USB-C. As Ars Technica article points it out, the EU put the final approval into the common charger law that will require all devices within specific categories, smartphones included, to standardize on USB-C. Now, most devices have already gone that way, including Apple's MacBook and iPad lines, but the iPhone line is stuck with Apple's proprietary Lightning connector. My guess is because they don't want to go and retool all of their manufacturing processes for the phone, especially at this part of the how the economy is doing, and especially all the costs of updating their manufacturing plants. Not only does that open the door to more options for organizations, consumers in the EU, some believe that this will actually be less e-waste because of it. Apple doesn't seem to agree here. Now, my point of view is that they go to USB-C. It actually opens the door to a large number of third-party solutions for charging and for data, which can cause some unforeseen consequences when supporting the devices. However, standards are good, and ensuring that consumers and organizations have options allows for broader ecosystems, and it also brings down the cost. I want to bring my co-hosts in here because I'm sure that they have several different points of view here. What do you guys think? Is the decision here going to impact the market in any way? What do you think, Curtis?
Well, in terms of moving the needle on sales one way or the other, I don't think so. It might boost sales of Lightning to USB transition cables, but that's about it. I'm not a fan of highly prescriptive legislation and rulemaking. What if the EU had existed and had mandated that we all do DB25 for our charging ports? We would now be dealing with phones that are the size of cigarette cases. I just don't know that it's a good thing to do. Are standards good? Sure. Should standards be mandatory? I'm not convinced, at least not at this level. So I don't see that it has any tremendously harmful effects, but I'm not a big fan of going about it this way.
Right. What about you, Cheebert? It seems strange that Apple will have to go retool themselves to do all this work. You think they'll just do it for the EU and restrict it only there and still sell the remaining backlog of inventory of Lightning stuff to the rest of the world?
Let's take a look at that first statement. Retooling. Now, I don't know if you've ever been involved with a device that has a radio in it. Getting it FCC certified or EU certified is difficult. And anytime you change any perforations of your shielded case, it's almost black magic to retune the RF envelope. Someone near and dear to our good friend Padre actually works on the Apple RF envelope. And he said sometimes just moving a hole in an RF cage, just a fraction of an inch, we're talking about moving it sub-millimeters, will be all that's necessary to get it to pass or fail certain tests. Now, as far as some of the other comments in this article, e-waste. Well, if all of a sudden the most popular phone on earth, and I believe it still is, changes its interface, that means all the Lightning devices that people have, and a lot of us have, I've got a ton of them, are now becoming e-waste. It's going to be a flood. Maybe in the long run, a USB-C would be great. Yeah, there you go. I happen to really like USB-C, but the Lightning's been around. It is a hermaphroditic cable, meaning you can plug it in either way, just like the USB-C. I think my only complaint about the Lightning is it doesn't have enough ground lines. So powering high-powered devices is actually kind of hard. So USB-C is better there. But let's tell a really short version of this story. Mandating an actual interface has a lot of interesting ramifications. Having been with the United States government and working in some interesting environments, there were lots of cases where the government mandated certain things. Let's put it this way. We still use paper tape on some devices in the classified world, and that's because of someone mandating that paper tape must be supported, and it is still supported 30 years later. Is that what's going to happen to USB-C? I say it's great to mandate that we go to a common interface someday, but I think the EU is being silly in trying to name USB-C, because maybe someday soon there's going to be a USB-D or E or F. And if they've mandated USB-C, the rest of the world will just wave at the European Union and say, nanny, nanny, boo, boo.
Right. Yeah, USB 4 is coming along. I know I've noticed a lot of smaller companies out of Taiwan and so on building out these solutions. So we'll have to see. We'll see how this evolves.